why. I know a person who was from Pennsylvania, was on disability, came here to Colorado and lived with her parents. In her 40s, she is very well capable of working. Applied for disability here in Colorado. Her father looked at it and said, "Oh my goodness, you are getting more in disability than your mother and I, we worked all our lives." So where is this? I mean, this one has to be cut. Education. Get rid of the Department of Education. Safe schools has stated every school, public and private, has the obligation to teach homosexual agenda. And Jared Polis is promoting this.
Well, again, I don't think that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing again on jobs in the economy. And
it's entitlements. I mean, this person could work. It's entitlements. I mean, if you are, all right, energy. What is this bill, 1687? That's going.
Which?
It's a Fuel Standard Act.
Is that by John Shimkus, or is that
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that and get back to you on that, if you don't mind.
All right.
Is it HR 1687, or is it a Senate bill?
It's a HR.
HR, okay. Well, I'll look into that. If we could get your phone number, we can get back to you on that.
All right. Connie Mack from Florida. Okay. He says, for every penny the government spends, for every dollar the government spends, take a penny out of it. Now that isn't much, and that would give us trillions of dollars.
Well, and I think the overall point of how we grow, growing our economy, putting policies in place that get people back to work, that create quality jobs where...
All right, you're talking about budget too. So this is what we have to do is cut. Yeah. We have to cut across the board. I've been on Medicare for 15 years. I don't like it.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm 21. My generation's kind of the one that's going to be paying for most of this. And I just wanted to say, with regards to things like healthcare and the way, especially with Obamacare, that tripled my family's insurance rates. I'm not sure exactly, but part of me thinks the way we pay for healthcare is just absurd. We don't do that with anything else. Like with the example we used earlier of a rake. The way, if we were to buy rakes that way, you would go through your employer rather than going to the store. Your employer would have a dedicated rake provider. You couldn't go out of state to purchase a rake. You couldn't order one online. Part of me thinks, I can see the need to, I've heard of ideas like moving Medicaid over to block grants, which would discourage. Currently, states put in $1. The federal government puts in $1, and that means that the states are kind of encouraged to waste as much as they possibly can on this. Block grants would mean the state gets X amount based on need. Part of me thinks if we could just move over to that, move over to more high deductibles where, like if you're poor or whatever, the government will help you if you get some sort of crushing illness, but you'll pay your day-to-day things. You never go to a doctor's office and see physical, $60 right up there up front like you do with a rake. You see the price of the rake. Part of me thinks if we could have something go through there. I can see the need to cover the poor, the pre-existing, but how do we get some of this regulation out of the way? How do we make it so that it's individuals purchasing it and making the decisions rather than insurance companies, employers, or the government?
Well, and I think that's what's so great about this discussion, is, as you mentioned, the opportunity to have different ideas and to work through them. And so I do think there are better ways to do it. In the state legislature, I carried a bill that would allow people to buy insurance across state lines. In Colorado, they passed a bill a couple of years ago that said you can't discount insurance for people who do things like quit smoking. So how do you create a better system, better policies? We just passed a bill out of the Energy and Commerce Committee several weeks ago that deals with tort reform. Putting in a national tort reform cap to make sure that we're not allowing runaway litigation to drive up the cost of health care.
Have any of the states actually opened up to purchases across? Like, can states can states do
For
that
individuals, no. I
unilaterally?
mean, for individuals, no. And so, because it is something that Congress is going to, that Congress allows. And so, what I tried to do as a state legislator was to create an interstate compact. And the interstate compact was something that had to be approved by Congress. And that's the way we allowed insurance to be sold across state lines. Chuck, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're brave to come up here. The Republicans saw a problem. They said, we have a problem with spending and Medicare and all that. And they proposed a solution. It was not popular, and it's brave for all of you to come out and take the arrows. Do the Democrats have any kind of proposal for health care and the spending other than just let's raise taxes on the rich?
Well, when we asked point blank the
Correct me if I'm
president,
wrong, but didn't that happen 2 years ago?
when we asked the president point blank to give us his plan on the debt ceiling, he said he would not. He doesn't have a plan for that. And so he has so far not come forward with his own plan. So, yes?
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that, yeah, I'm a Democrat, of course, so...
My dad's a Democrat, too. It's okay.
I wanted to mention that the Congressional Progressive Caucus had an alternative budget proposal.
Right on,
Yeah. And, have you had a chance to take a look at it? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, and I voted no. I don't support many of the policies that were included in that, including some of the tax increases that they would have perpetrated on most people in this room. So, yes?
Yeah, getting back to the taxing the rich, of which I am not one, but
Makes two of us.
The top 2 or 3% pay 60% of the taxes. And what really bothers me is that 47% of the people pay no taxes. And that, to me, is criminal if you're a citizen of this great country. And you're getting a free ride. There's too many takers, not enough makers. Everybody's a taker. And they don't want to get out and do what they need. There's just too many credits for this, a credit for that, and they don't pay any taxes. And they go around happy about it. And that shouldn't be. If you're going to live in this country, you need to contribute taxes.
And one of the things, like GE didn't pay any taxes.
Yeah.
If you look at the health care bill that passed 2 years ago, GE's actually gotten millions of dollars from the government
It was kind of
to
a
pay for
sneaky deal
health care,
with Obama.
even though they didn't pay any taxes. And this budget actually does do a great deal in closing some of those tax loopholes to make sure that people are, if they're supposed to pay taxes, they're paying taxes.
General Motors wants to raise the price of gas so that they could have their cars electric.
Yeah, and I heard that on the radio today. I haven't heard specific details on what they wanted to do, but I heard a radio report where somebody at General Motors was talking about they hope that they can increase the gas tax. You know what? I'm sorry. I think gas prices are high enough. We need to be lowering the price of gas instead of raising it.
What I hear from the group here is that it appears that we need better management of these various programs like Medicare. I have some doubts that the management is skillful enough. If we had skillful management like we have in business, we'd have much lower costs, and we may not even have to increase. We can get more for our money. I'll give you an example. I was out and had my knee replaced at the Mayo Clinic in January.
Oh, you're doing well.
Yeah, and first time I've ever used Medicare. Yeah, it's very interesting. I stayed 3 days after I had the knee replaced. Went over to the nursing home. Skilled person helping me recover. And near the end, I wanted to get some kind of walker or a set of crutches. Well, I decided I needed to get a walker or a set of crutches. And the girl said, "Well, you don't have to pay. Medicare will pay for it." I said, "Well, when do I get them?" She said, "Well, I have to wait. You have to wait till you leave before you can get these crutches." "Well, I'll just pay for them myself." So I don't worry about it. So I said, "Can I get them now?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "When you call that vendor and ask for those crutches, I want you to ask for a discount. Because I'm paying for cash and I want a discount on these crutches." She looked at me in this weird way. I'm asking her for a discount. This man's out of his head. Anyway, the Medicare price for these crutches was $55. They delivered the same item to me. I asked for I got it for $35. Now that tells you, that worries me. That tells me that the government is buying things at prices that aren't competitive. They're paying premium price, and they're doing this in many other ways. I think what we need is a good audit of Medicare. You got to get business people to audit this damn thing. You can take 30% out of the cost and still have the same program.
We did have a hearing a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, on Medicare fraud and some of the.
Not necessarily fraud, just ignorance and lack of poor management.
There's a yes, sir.
You mentioned your bill that for small businesses, allowing them to have a savings account. I think that's the kind of thing that really will stimulate jobs and spending on equipment. The question I have is, it sounds like from your brief explanation that this is money you set aside to be used down the road for a purchase of a piece of equipment, say. Think about the possibility of buying that equipment today with borrowed dollars and paying that loan off with pre-tax dollars, not only the interest but the principal. Is that something in your?
You know, I think I'd have to go back and look at the bill, but I think to see if that could be incorporated into it. But I think if I understand what you're saying, is you could use this money to pay a loan that you use. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That way, the spending would be encouraged almost immediately.
Okay.
And,
well, perhaps we can talk about it more. The way that so I get a clear understanding of what you're saying. The way that it works, you'd actually be able to save this. You know, you could build this savings up over a number of years.
Right.
And then once you started accessing it, though, then you would have a limited time in order to use it, simply because the idea is not to lock up the funding. The idea is to allow people a savings vehicle and then invest that money directly into the economy to start creating jobs. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that and see if we can flesh it out so I can get a better idea. Are you filming me? I have a policy of not we're not going to take questions from trackers. So go ahead.
Well, he's filming you right now. He's filming you the whole time.
Well, he hasn't asked a question. Trackers, political trackers, are going to take questions. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry if I disrupted everything, but I'm looking at this audience, and we're in the VFW, which means there's, I don't know if there are a lot of you are vets, but the people that belong to this club are vets. William Crystal, who is an extremely conservative person, appeared on the Jon Stewart Daily Show. And at let me just tell you what he said, all right? William Crystal sat on that show and said the VA was the best health care in the world. Okay, this is a government-run program. This is William Crystal. All right. Okay,
it's extremely expensive, though. We couldn't afford to do that.
We're going to cut back VA benefits? I don't hear anybody talk about Medicare or Medicaid. All right, but you're talking about a single-payer program that's run by the government. I'd like to know if, I'm 62 now, so I'm close to Medicare age, but if I just had back surgery last year, and for the room alone, I was in the hospital for 8 days, was $207,000. I would like to know how the Paul Ryan plan is going to help me if I was 32 at this point, and then I get into, I'm older, I'm 67, I'm eligible for that type of thing. But you're talking, everyone's concentrating on 55 and older, and almost everyone here has gray hair.
First of all, let me address something about the VA system. I'm 100% disabled Vietnam veteran. So I've been on VA systems for many, many years. And you have to understand the VA system is very complex. There are several parts of it. There's the VA hospital system, and if you've been to any VA hospitals lately, you'll be instantaneously learn that there's a lot to be desired in terms of increasing the quality of the care at those hospitals. They provide a bit of. Then there is the non-hospital care through the VA benefit program. It's absolutely outstanding. So there are parts of the program which are very highly touted, and I love it, absolutely. There are parts of the program that I simply won't use because the quality and the waiting time and the delays and the other things are just absolutely unacceptable.
And sir, the situation with our VA hospitals did not happen in the last 2 years.
Oh, no, it's been 30 years ago.
All right, so everyone talks about it's Barack's fault. Well, it's not Barack's fault. This has been going on for a long time, and I always hear about people just blaming what's going on for the last 2.5 years. I'm sorry. There's a lot.
It's been going on for 50 years, so you're absolutely right. It's been administrations of every political party. It's been a matter of funding. It's been a matter of management. And you're absolutely right. It certainly is not President Obama's fault, nor is it George Bush's fault, nor is it President Clinton's fault, nor is it George H.W. Bush's fault. It's just a cumulative thing over a lot of years where the management of this has just been deteriorating over time because of a funding issue and a management issue.
Okay, the other thing I'd like to ask about is when we talk about bureaucrats, and I know when the health care reform bill was proposed, people were talking about they didn't want government bureaucrats deciding on my health care. All right? Well, how many of you have to get pre-approval for any kind of health care when you were younger? Not Medicare, but when you were younger and you had to contact someone and say, is it okay for me to have this operation? Is it okay for me to have this procedure? And the bureaucrat that you were dealing with at that point was working for somebody like United Healthcare. They're sitting in a cubicle somewhere in corporate headquarters. They're only concerned about United Healthcare's bottom line. And they're the ones that were making decisions as to whether or not you could have a procedure. Your doctor was not even involved at that point. They suggested it, and someone else made the decision as to whether or not that was going to happen. And think about what it was like 20 years ago, Paula, that you had to do that.
It's still like that.
All right, well, let's go. If you don't mind, we'll go on to some future questions. Thank you for being here. Yes, in the back.
Okay. You had said in your opening remarks, referencing what this lady said about bureaucrats making decisions, and you were attributing that to Medicare. I have Medicare. I'm also a cancer survivor. I'm here today because I had an excellent team of physicians and because I had Medicare. I did not have to get permission from anybody to have any of the diagnostic procedures that I used. I did not have to get permission from anybody to determine what physical condition I was in before I had a major surgery. And I did not have to ask anybody for permission for any of the treatments, be they surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy, that ultimately cured me of cancer. So to suggest that the government tells you what medical care you can have and what medical care you can't have is very disingenuous, and I really wish you and other members of your party would stop doing that. Medicare does more to control costs than anything else out there. I see my statement of benefits. I know what's filled out, I know what's allowed, and I know what the 80% is, I know what the 20% is. If it wasn't for Medicare setting a limit on what physicians, hospitals, and everybody else could charge, we would have a much worse health care crisis and costs than we have today.
Let me just ask you. First of all, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here tonight. Yeah, please. I think. Would you agree though that? And let me actually put it this way. There was a report that just came out saying that Medicare will be bankrupt in 2024. Ma'am, that's from the government. It's not even from a party. It's from the government's own research. Do you think we should protect and preserve Medicare for future generations?
Yes, I do, and I think we should preserve the system that we have now, not a privatized voucher.
If we let things go as they are.
There are other methods of raising the rates.
Then let's talk about them. Let's get the ideas out there. Unfortunately, one second, let me respond. Unfortunately, what we've seen is a refusal to come up with ideas to make sure that Medicare is around for future generations. We have asked my colleagues in the Congress who haven't come up with a plan to come up with a plan. And they would rather put it in a 30-second TV commercial to try to scare people than come up with ideas to save Medicare for future generations. And you know what? And we've got one more question from somebody who hasn't asked a question yet. Yes, go ahead. Then we've got to get going because I've got about a 3-hour drive today.
Okay, I've heard. I don't want to talk about Medicare. I want to know about the way Obama spends money. In other words, I hear he's sending money all to Europe and all the small countries. Where does he get that money? I mean, does he have anybody's permission? Does he have to get it from the House or what?
Well, money that the president spends is appropriated by Congress.
Okay, but he can't have just any old money he wants.
Correct, he can't. He's got to have, Congress has to appropriate.
He's going to send aid to Japan. And people were talking about, on the news and all that stuff, talking about it, and how we can't even solve our own problems. How are we going to Japan? We need the money here. Okay, is that, so, but he can't do it unless you give it to him, is that correct?
Well, unless Congress appropriates the money, and he is
And that's
authorized by
not-
law to spend it the way he is, that's
Okay,
correct.
then that, and then so if we don't have the money to send to Japan, then you just say no and don't appropriate, is that correct?
Well, Congress needs to start cutting spending, yes, and appropriating less money,
I'm
yes.
just trying to understand the system.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was that Obama says that he is subsidizing oil drilling in Brazil. How can he, are you giving him the money for that?
Well, I'm not sure he said he was subsidizing. I don't think he said that. What he said is that he wanted to get more oil from Brazil.
No,
No,
he
this is
Well, but he did.
oil company, the Brazilian oil company, he allowed them to drill in the Gulf area. That's what she said.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's no subsidy.
So I may need a little more
It did
clarification.
say that we, or somebody said on the news, that we were subsidizing
No, it's not
the
subsidized.
oil drilling in Brazil. Now, is that correct or not correct?
Well, I don't think, again, I'd have to find out what was said. I don't think I want to, I need
Well,
more
the word was
details.
subsidized.
Okay.
Well, and they're
Well,
using
and
that
all
word
the
the wrong
time
way.
I'm
They allowed
thinking-
this Petrobras, the name of the company, to drill in the Gulf area. And we approved that. And then they said, they just got a lease to drill in the Gulf. That's all.
What he's saying is that he thinks that a company, Brazilian company may have been offered a lease and that's what continue.
Well, so my point is that why are we subsidizing?
We're not subsidizing.
And this also is George Soros's project. He can subsidize himself. He's got more money than God.
All we did is give them a lease.
Then, and then don't let us drill in Anwar or wherever it is you want to drill.
Well, and that's, I think, to my point earlier, that we need to make sure that we are gaining our own energy independence, that we are using our domestic resources, whether it's traditional or renewable energy resources. I would rather rely on Colorado, Kansas, and Nebraska than some of our overseas suppliers right now.
Exactly.
And so that's why I support policies for an all of the above energy plan, and that's why I introduced the bill that will help us
My
get.
basic, all of this, my basic thing is that then Obama can't just take any old money he wants and throw it someplace without your approval and without you giving it to him. Is that correct?
He can't spend money that's not authorized or appropriated.
Is that true of war or is
If it's appropriated,
because war, I know that's what the situation.
if it was appropriated, I mean, the president has gone into Libya, and that's where he's going. They're in Iraq and Afghanistan.
So
So
are you sending money? Are you?
if the Congress appropriates it, and he,
Well, you'll know it because you'll.
he's a man of sorts. Hey, on that note, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Look forward to well, it's not the house. I hope they're nice to you.
We got here late.